JKB back with another episode. Today on the show, I'm reviewing South Park: The Fractured Butthole. Thank you so much to Ubisoft for sliding in my DMs with the sweet, oh sweet, buttery review code of this game. Matt over at Ubisoft, I'm blowing you kisses. I hope they land in the places I like you most. I'm under the weather today, if you haven't noticed. I'm on medication. There's a lot of poo coming out my bum and a lot of puke coming out of my mouth. So I have the flu. I apologize if I feel a little off in this review. Yeah, I was a huge fan of South Park in high school. Everybody was doing Cartman impersonations and I wanted to kill all those people. It did put me off a little bit. However, when the movie came out and Canada was involved, you know, if you haven't seen the movie, spoiler warning, because it's the internet, Canada has a big role in that, and I'm Canadian, and that was like a special moment for me because obviously South Park is a big part of my life. And when you're a child, this is kind of another topic I wanted to go on here, role-playing is a big fucking deal. I used to be in like grade 2 or 3 playing Mega Man on the swing set, you know, and then like Pylon Man would show up and fuck up my whole recess. And I'd blow him away with, like, you know, a powered shot, or, you know, I slid into him like Mega Man does, or I use my fake robot dog and, like, kick him in the face or something. You know, and half of that happened in real life, and he lost some teeth. But that's another story. But role-playing is something magical. It's something that you really lose as you get older. It's like, you can't show up at home and, like, your wife's like, "What are you doing out in the backyard, Shane?" And you're like, I'm playing fucking G.I. Joe with Tom. And your mom's like, "Get in here and wash the fucking potatoes, you fucking idiot." You can't do that. Role-playing is kind of dead unless you LARP. And if you don't know what LARPing is, look that up. That's a Google. Look it up on Google. You'll love it. Point here is, role-playing as a child is something that is magical, and that's lost when you become an adult. When you play a game like this, it puts you smack dab back right in recess again. Makes you remember the time when you didn't have to go to school or you had no responsibility. That's what this game is about. It's about children role-playing. And does it work? Abso-fucking-lutely does this game work. It's the most fun I've had playing a game since God knows when. The story of the game is all about Cartman wanting to find a missing cat that has a reward attached to it for $100. He wants to use that money to kickstart the equivalent of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But remember, these are kids, so they're role-playing, and at times you don't know what's the imagination on screen or what's really happening in South Park. And I should also say, I'm going to do this review kind of a little different because I want to keep it short and sweet, because I'm going to shit my pants and puke on the mic. Let's do it this way. What I'm going to do is talk about the rules of a great RPG, what needs to be there and what kind of sucks in an RPG. Now, at the beginning of this game, you're given the option to create your character. And this is where a joke that is so ridiculous happens in this game, and you've probably heard about it. You could choose to be white or you could choose to be brown or black. The darker you go, Cartman comes on the screen, like in voiceover, and says, the darker you are, life might be harder for you, but it's not going to actually affect the difficulty in the game. And that's when I was like, oh my god, like, these people are not holding back whatsoever. So customizing your character is really, really, really good in this game. I can guarantee if you're trying to make yourself, but in South Park form, you're going to be able to do that. Now let's get to the rules of a great RPG. First and foremost is the setting. South Park is something I dreamt about being in as a teenager. I mean, all of us kind of did do that when we were in high school. We thought, if we're going to play a video game, why can't it just basically look like South Park? Why can't it just happen? And finally, well, not finally, Stick of Truth did this as well. But again, the setting is South Park. If you ever wanted to be in the show, put your character into an episode that lasts like between 17 and 19 hours, this is the game to get. And when I say the details are there, I mean every single detail you've ever seen on the show is represented in this cartoon version of the video game. I mean, I'm doing a really shitty way of explaining this, but it is extremely detailed in terms of fan service. If you wanted to ever be in South Park, you can do it right now. The character building is another rule of great RPGs. This is where the game kind of, for a lot of people, might not be spectacular. It's not the deepest RPG that you've ever played. It has enough, I'm going to say it has enough RPG elements to really bring it to a level that you're going to be happy with. The character building really comes down to a couple of things that you're going to have to do in this game. I'll get to one of them at the end there because it's kind of a negative, but the rest of it, like in terms of your character's design, you're going to be constantly finding things in drawers or unlocking special costumes that Cartman is going to send to this toy box that sits at the bottom of your bed, so you can go back to your house and kind of pick up all of the unlocks and change the way your character looks, constantly evolve the way you look. Doesn't really affect the gameplay, but when you're setting up your character in the beginning here, this is where you choose your character. Essentially, do you want to be like the Brute, or do you want to be somebody who throws projectiles, or do you want to be somebody who just fights like a normal superhero and then has farting abilities? Or, you know, you choose at the beginning there, and then you kind of work on leveling up through one thing I'll talk about at the end, but also by doing side quests and things like this. Now, the exploration in the game is unbelievable. There's a ton of secrets with a ton of different locations. All of South Park is represented in this game. The map is bigger than the Stick of Truth. Obviously, they had to expand upon that. There are locations that have so many secrets in them, but, you know, in good RPG fashion, they require you to come back once you've unlocked a different ability in the future. Now, in terms of quests, which is obviously a huge element of making a great RPG, every single quest I did in this game was not perfect in terms of its pacing, but this game, it is so fucking fun. Every single line of dialogue is hilarious. Like, it never lets down at any point. Everybody is always saying something funny. The quests are always kind of, you know, they're way off the main storyline in terms of the actual content, but it really drives you to want to do them all because all of the characters in this game are hilarious. So quests are awesome, side quests are awesome in this game. I had a lot of fun going to do all of them. Gameplay variety. Okay, what do you have in this game? So you've got your exploring, of course. You've got your fighting, which I'll get to at the end there. You've got your superhero view, which essentially is kind of like Batman's, you know, like detective mode, where he puts on goggles and he's able to see clues in the environment. You can do that in this game and throw farts, you know, at the reticle that's on screen that you're moving around. And then there's something called Coonstagram, which is a play on Instagram, and this works into the leveling up. So you're tasked with essentially taking selfies with everybody in South Park, and some people are like, no, you're not cool enough, come back when you're cooler, or some people do it right away. But this Instagram kind of play, it's fun for like 5 minutes, and then after an hour I totally forgot about doing it, and it was kind of disappointing, to say the least. I thought it would just mean something more, but it's just really you collecting selfies and leveling that up. Levels your character up, of course, in certain ways, and it gets a little repetitive, but then it opens up to the second street, and it's like, you know, double the length, so you have a lot more to do and figure out. Now, in terms of the progression, I felt the characters did progress at the proper rate, but the pacing is a little off. Like, you go from like strong, and then all of a sudden you're fighting 6th graders, and you feel stronger, but then it goes to fighting this clan, and it's just all over the place. And I just felt it was a little off, like a little off. And another important part of, you know, an RPG is definitely the UI, like the user interface, like dealing with all of these things you pick up and all of these items, and crafting is in the game. You actually use your smartphone in the game as your UI. So if you've ever used an iPhone, you'll understand how to navigate the menu systems in this game. The narrative, that's where I'm not going to spoil anything here, but the pacing did seem a little off. as I get to the end of this review, I'm going to go over the cons and the pros and give you a score. In terms of the cons, the combat can be very frustrating. This is something I didn't really talk about at the beginning here, but you're playing on essentially a checkerboard, and you're able to move wherever the checkerboard lets you during a fight. You'll have a lit up blue box on the ground, which indicates where you can move, but there's all sorts of elements in terms of the combat that get in the way of your movements. And I'm basically talking about other characters who are going to be standing right in front of you on this checkerboard layout and drive you absolutely fucking crazy. It's frustrating at times that all of these characters are on screen with you. You obviously have a team with you as you get deeper into the game, and they don't do really any work on explaining how detailed, like I'm talking about how much depth is in this combat. Once you get into the thick of it, you're going to want to really grind a little bit and kind of just have random battles to understand exactly what's going on. So without going into extreme detail in the combat, I'll say that the combat is way better than Stick of Truth, but there are elements of this combat system that are frustrating. You know, like characters getting in your fucking way. There's also a lot of bugs and glitches that I noticed, like things popping in and out, which is not the end of the world. It's just, it's an Ubisoft game, so should I say we should expect these things? Maybe? They're gonna patch it and it'll be fixed, but I had to say it in the review. Then Kunstagram, which is, you know, it's named after Cartman's character. No spoilers here, but Kunstagram is essentially a ripoff of Instagram, obviously, where you want to take selfies and level up. I forgot about this within like an hour, so that was a bit disappointing. I thought it was going to go somewhere special. It kind of is forgotten as you go along. You kind of just, whatever. So the pros here, though. This game is absolutely fucking hilarious from every moment. I mean, there's not a moment in this game I was like, okay, we get it, whatever. Every single time they say anything, I'm like laughing. I'm turning TVs on in houses, and the script is ridiculous. And I turned on one TV, and they're talking about like how Russell Crowe, he loves women, but he loves to fight. And it's like, whoa, oh my God. Like, it's so detailed, and it's so perfect for fans of the series. If you're a fan of South Park, I mean, don't walk. Rush out to the store to buy this. The character development across the board in terms of all of the characters is amazing. They all have their own little story that's compacted into the main story. The side quests are tons of fun. I've never had this much fun with a game since, I mean, I really don't know when. The combat is improved, however, it is still frustrating. So I'm gonna give The Fractured Butthole a 5, no, kidding, an 8.5 out of 10. I highly recommend this, obviously, if you're a fan of South Park, but not just that. If you've never really watched South Park, this is a really good game to jump into. I would say play the Stick of Truth first, so you get sort of a backstory of like why they're doing this. But in saying all of that, thank you for watching. I highly recommend this game. It's not perfect, but it is getting very close to that. So I'll see you on the next episode of JKB.